Kai wiped the sweat from his brow as he crouched beside the broken supply drone. The mining colony's sun was harsh today, burning orange across the dusty ground, and the wind carried fine grains of sand that stuck to his skin. This part of the colony was mostly abandoned, far from the main living quarters where the noise of machinery and chatter barely reached. Kai liked coming here sometimes. It was quiet and he could work without interruption. As he adjusted the drone's damaged arm, he noticed something strange out of the corner of his eye. A shadow moved just beyond the ridge of rocks. At first he thought it was another worker sneaking past, but no one else came out here alone. He froze and squinted, trying to see more clearly. A figure stepped into the light, tall and slender, with skin that shimmered faintly under the sun. It was not human. Its eyes glowed a soft blue, reflecting the harsh light, and its hair, or whatever resembled hair, flowed like silver threads down its back. The alien woman stared at him, silent and cautious. Kai's heart beat faster, but he stayed calm. He had read about alien encounters in old textbooks, and the stories always described fear, hostility, or misunderstanding. He did not feel fear, only curiosity. He noticed that her body was thin, almost fragile-looking, and her movements were careful, as if she had been avoiding something, or someone, for a long time. The colony had spread stories about her. People called her a monster and claimed she was dangerous. Small accidents in the settlement were blamed on her, though no one had ever proven it. Kai had heard whispers from other workers that she sometimes wandered near the outskirts of the colony, but no one had ever approached her. The fear was strong. Kai decided to act carefully. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small ration pack and a container of water. Maybe she's hungry, he whispered to himself. Slowly, he set them on a flat rock and stepped back, making sure not to look threatening. The alien woman crouched slightly, eyes fixed on the food. After a long moment, she inched closer, sniffing at the pack. Then, as if deciding it was safe, she picked it up delicately. Kai held his breath as she ate. Her hands were graceful, fingers longer than a human's, but she used them carefully. She drank the water next, eyes never leaving his. For a few moments, the world felt silent except for the soft crunch of the food she ate. "Are you okay?" Kai asked softly. He spoke slowly, choosing simple words, hoping she might understand. She tilted her head as if trying to make sense of him, then made a quiet, melodic sound. It was not threatening. It sounded like curiosity. Kai felt a strange connection. This being, different from anything he had ever seen, was not a monster. She was frightened, yes, and hungry, but gentle. The way she looked at him made him realize she had intelligence, maybe even emotions similar to humans. Over the next few minutes, Kai kept his distance but remained there. He wanted her to feel safe. Slowly, he began to leave small gifts, more water, rations, and some nutrient bars. Each time he came, she watched silently, sometimes approaching cautiously. Each time he noticed small signs that she was learning, mimicking a smile, tilting her head in a thoughtful way, even making soft sounds that seemed almost like laughter. The colony people's warnings echoed in his mind, but he chose to ignore them. Fear often made humans cruel, and he had seen it many times. He wanted to understand her, to help her, not harm her. Kai began thinking of a name for her, though he did not know her real one. "Mira," he whispered softly one day, the name meaning wonder in one of the old human languages. She had no way to reply yet, but her glowing eyes seemed to acknowledge it. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in orange and purple, Kai stayed with Mira a little longer. The colony below would soon go quiet and he would return home, but tonight, he had discovered something incredible. Not a monster, but a being who deserved care, kindness, and understanding. For the first time in his life, Kai felt that the universe was wider and more beautiful than he had ever imagined. And as Mira watched him with her glowing eyes, he knew their story had only just begun. Kai returned to the edge of the colony the next morning, carrying a small bag of food and water. The sun had just risen, casting long shadows across the dusty ground. He moved quietly, careful not to make sudden sounds that could scare Mira. When he reached the familiar hiding spot near the rocks, he saw her waiting. Her glowing blue eyes shone softly in the early light, and for a moment Kai felt a warmth in his chest. He placed the food on a flat rock and stepped back. Mira approached slowly, her movements graceful and careful. She looked at him, then at the food, then back at him again as if making sure it was safe. Kai nodded, encouraging her silently. She picked up the food delicately and began to eat, her hands moving with surprising precision. Kai watched her for a while, marveling at how intelligent and aware she seemed. It amazed him that someone so different could be so gentle and careful. He wanted to communicate with her more, to bridge the gap between them. Slowly, he knelt down and made soft, simple gestures with his hands, showing her the word food in the old human sign language. Mira tilted her head, watching closely, then mimicked the movement. Kai's heart leapt. She was learning. Over the next few days, Kai visited Mira regularly. Each time he tried to teach her small things. He showed her how to drink water from the container without spilling, how to unwrap the food carefully, and how to hide safely when other people came close. Mira learned quickly. She repeated his gestures, made small sounds in response, and even began to watch him with what seemed like curiosity. Kai realized that Mira was not only intelligent but also observant. She noticed details he hadn't thought she would see. The way the wind moved the sand, the direction of the colony guards, the changes in light as the sun rose and set. She seemed to understand the world in her own way, different from humans but equally sharp. One afternoon, Kai brought a small broken tool and showed Mira how to fix it. He moved slowly, demonstrating each step. Mira watched closely, then tried to mimic his actions. Her long fingers were clumsy at first, but she adjusted quickly, and soon she managed to complete the task. Kai clapped softly, careful not to startle her. Mira tilted her head, then made a soft sound that he imagined was laughter. For the first time, he felt that she was enjoying their time together, not just surviving. Despite the bond growing between them, Kai was aware of the danger Mira faced. The colonists still feared her, still whispered about the monster that lived near the edge of the colony. Kai tried to ignore their warnings, but he knew they could become serious. That thought made him even more determined to help her, to keep her safe and show her kindness when no one else would. Kai began to think about how he could communicate more with Mira. Words were difficult, but gestures and simple sounds worked. He showed her how to point at objects, how to follow his hands to understand what he meant. Mira caught on quickly, and soon they were able to talk in their own small way. She pointed to the water and made a soft sound, and Kai nodded, understanding her perfectly. By the end of the week, Mira had grown stronger. She no longer looked like a fragile creature hiding from the world. She stood taller, moved more confidently, and watched Kai with trust in her eyes. Kai felt proud of her progress, but he also felt a deep sense of responsibility. She depended on him, and he could not let anyone harm her. That evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, Kai and Mira shared a quiet moment. Mira sat close, her glowing eyes reflecting the colors of the sunset. Kai reached out carefully, placing a hand near hers. She did not pull away. Instead, she made a soft sound, almost like a sigh, and rested her hand near his. In that simple gesture, Kai felt a connection that went beyond words. He realized then that Mira was not just an alien in need of food and care. She was a being capable of understanding, of learning, of feeling, and he too was learning from her patience, her intelligence, and her gentle trust. For the first time, Kai felt that their bond could overcome fear, prejudice, and the walls humans had built around themselves. As the night fell, Kai packed his bag and prepared to leave, but he knew he would return the next day. Mira would be waiting, and so would the chance to continue their growing friendship, their silent understanding, and the quiet hope that kindness could change the hearts of even the most fearful humans. The colony had grown louder over the past few days, with workers talking nervously about the monster at the edge of the settlement. Rumors spread quickly, and some even claimed she was stealing supplies or causing accidents. Kai, however, knew the truth. Mira was gentle, curious, and completely harmless, but he also knew that the colonists' fear could turn into cruelty if they ever found her weak or alone. One morning, Kai hurried to the rocky ridge with his usual supplies, but what he saw made his heart ache. Mira was lying near a small crevice, too weak to move quickly. Her skin shimmered faintly, but she seemed exhausted, almost fading into the shadows. The food he had left yesterday had been taken, or perhaps she hadn't been able to reach it. The wind whipped dust around her, and she shivered in the early chill. "Kai," he whispered, though he knew she could not understand the word. He ran forward, kneeling beside her. Her glowing eyes opened weakly, and she made a soft sound, almost like a sigh. He noticed her breathing was shallow, her long fingers trembling as she tried to lift her head. Without thinking, Kai opened his bag and gave her water first. She drank slowly, then rested her head on the rock, too weak to do more. Kai tore open a ration pack and placed small pieces of food near her lips. She ate carefully, chewing slowly, but soon a faint strength returned to her body. Kai watched her, relieved. He could not imagine what she had endured in the hands of people who feared her. Once she had eaten enough to sit upright, Kai spoke softly. "You're safe now. I won't let anyone hurt you." Mira tilted her head and made a soft sound. It was not a word, but it felt like understanding. She reached out with one thin hand and touched his arm lightly, her glowing eyes looking straight into his. Kai shivered at the touch. It was gentle, full of trust, and it carried a strange warmth that he could not describe. He realized how much responsibility he carried. Mira was not only living at the edge of survival, she depended on him entirely. The colony's cruelty, leaving her hungry, calling her a monster, and spreading lies was something Kai could not ignore. He promised himself that he would protect her no matter the cost. Over the next few days, Kai adjusted his approach. He began leaving larger amounts of food and fresh water, ensuring she would not have to struggle alone. He also made small shelters using rocks and scraps he could find, places where she could hide safely if anyone came looking. Mira responded with quiet intelligence, learning to move between hiding spots, mimicking his gestures, and understanding when to stay still and quiet. Kai noticed that Mira's body had limits. She could not carry heavy objects or run far without tiring, and the lack of food had left her weak. He had to be careful not to push her too far, even as he wanted to teach her more about the world. He also noticed small details of her intelligence, how she studied the patterns of shadows, how she remembered paths through the rocks, and how she seemed to sense danger long before humans did. One afternoon, after Mira had eaten and rested, Kai sat beside her. "I'll make sure you never go hungry again," he said, though she did not understand words. Instead, she responded by leaning slightly toward him, her hand brushing his. It was a simple gesture, but Kai felt it as deeply as any conversation. Trust, he realized, could speak louder than words. That night, as he returned home, Kai thought about how unfair the colony was. Mira had done nothing wrong, yet people called her a monster and let her starve. He clenched his fists, feeling both anger and determination. He would change this story, starting with protecting her and teaching others that fear should not rule their actions. Mira's gratitude was quiet but unmistakable. Every soft sound, every glance, every careful gesture told Kai that she trusted him, maybe more than she had ever trusted anyone. And in return, Kai felt a responsibility he had never known before, a promise to care for a being who was unlike anyone he had ever met, yet who deserved every kindness the universe could give. As he walked back toward the main colony, Kai looked back at the ridge, imagining Mira resting safely under the rocks he had arranged. She was small, fragile, and vulnerable, but she was also intelligent, gentle, and full of life, and he knew in that moment that the bond forming between them was more important than fear, rumor, or prejudice. He had found something rare, something worth protecting with every bit of courage he had. The night settled over the colony, quiet and still, while Mira slept under the shelter Kai had built. Tomorrow he would return with more food, more care, and more trust, strengthening the fragile bond between human and alien that was beginning to grow stronger with every passing day. Kai returned early the next morning, carrying a small bag of supplies. The air was crisp, and the rising sun painted the rocky ridge in soft gold and pink. Mira was already awake, sitting quietly near the shelter Kai had built. Her glowing blue eyes followed him as he approached, full of curiosity and trust. Kai smiled softly, feeling warmth spread through him. "Good morning, Mira," he whispered, kneeling beside her. He held out a piece of food and she took it carefully, eating with slow, deliberate movements. As she chewed, Kai noticed how alert her eyes were, scanning the surroundings for danger while still paying attention to him. Her intelligence amazed him. She was learning quickly, and every small action showed that she understood much more than the colony gave her credit for. Kai decided it was time to try teaching her more than just gestures and signs for food. He had brought a small broken tool from the colony, hoping she could observe how it worked. "Watch closely," he said softly, showing her the parts and how they fit together. Mira tilted her head, leaning in with careful interest. Her long, delicate fingers reached out to touch the tool, feeling the shapes and textures. She mimicked his movements slowly at first, then more confidently. By the time the sun was high in the sky, she had managed to reassemble the tool perfectly. Kai clapped softly, careful not to startle her. Mira made a soft, melodic sound, and for a moment Kai thought she was laughing. She tilted her head toward him, eyes sparkling, and touched his arm lightly. Kai's heart swelled. She was not only learning, but she was enjoying it. Their connection felt deeper with each passing day. Over the next few hours, Kai continued to show Mira simple tasks. He taught her how to carry water carefully, how to arrange small supplies, and even how to hide effectively if someone came close. Mira watched intently, repeating his actions, sometimes making small mistakes but correcting them quickly. Her intelligence impressed Kai more and more. He realized that her mind was sharp, perhaps sharper than many humans he knew, and her curiosity was endless. Kai also began teaching Mira about simple human customs, gestures, expressions, and ways to communicate basic ideas. He pointed to the sky saying sun, and she mimicked him. He showed her how to nod for yes and shake her head for no. Mira learned quickly, her glowing eyes reflecting her understanding. Kai felt proud and amazed. In a short time, they had created a language of their own, simple but effective, based on gestures, sounds, and mutual understanding. But their time together was not just about learning. Kai noticed small moments of joy between them. Mira would watch him smile and try to mimic it, tilting her head curiously when it felt strange. She began following him when he explored nearby areas, her steps careful but confident. She laughed softly at small surprises, a bird flying overhead, the way wind moved the dust, or the sound of a tool falling. Kai found himself laughing too, and for the first time he felt that she was truly enjoying life despite everything she had endured. As the day ended, Kai noticed how much trust had grown between them. Mira no longer flinched when he approached. She allowed him to touch her hand lightly and even leaned toward him when he offered food. The bond was quiet but strong, built on patience, care, and understanding. Kai also felt a growing sense of responsibility. Mira depended on him not just for food but for safety, guidance, and companionship. He could not ignore the colony's fear and prejudice, but he knew he could offer her protection, teaching her to navigate the human world while keeping her safe. Before leaving for the day, Kai set down the remaining food and water. Mira picked up the items carefully, and for a moment their eyes met. It was more than gratitude. There was recognition, understanding, and a silent promise between them. Kai stood and waved softly. Mira responded with a delicate gesture, a mimic of his wave, and then watched him leave. As he walked back toward the colony, Kai felt a deep sense of hope. Mira was no longer just a frightened, starving alien at the edge of the settlement. She was learning, growing stronger, and beginning to understand the human world. And he was learning, too, about patience, empathy, and the quiet power of trust. That night, as the colony slept under the dim stars, Mira rested in the small shelter Kai had built. She curled slightly, her glowing eyes reflecting faint light as she seemed to replay the day in her mind. She had learned, she had survived, and she had begun to trust a human completely. And Kai, looking out at the stars from his own quarters, felt that their story was only just beginning, a story of understanding, friendship, and hope that could one day change the hearts of those who feared what they did not know. Kai had been visiting Mira for weeks now, leaving food, water, and teaching her small skills. Their bond had grown stronger with each day, and Mira was learning to understand him in ways words could not describe. But the colony was not pleased. Rumors about the alien woman had spread further, and the leaders grew anxious. They called her a threat, insisting she had to be captured and brought under control. One morning, as Kai made his way toward the ridge with a bag of food, he noticed unusual activity in the colony below. A group of workers, led by a stern officer, was moving toward the outer edges. Their tools clanged loudly against the rocks, and their voices carried in the morning air. Kai's stomach tightened. They had discovered Mira's presence. He ran quietly, scanning the rocky path for shortcuts. Mira, waiting near the shelter, sensed the tension immediately. Her glowing eyes widened, and she crouched slightly, instinctively moving toward the hiding spots Kai had taught her. She made a soft, urgent sound like a warning. Kai nodded, signaling her to stay calm and follow his lead. The officers' group came closer, shouting orders and calling out her name. Kai knew they would not understand that Mira had done nothing wrong. The colonist's fear had turned into determination to capture her, and that was dangerous. He had to act fast. Kai grabbed Mira's hand gently, guiding her through the winding paths between the rocks. She followed without hesitation, trusting him completely. They moved quietly, using the hiding spots he had prepared over the past days. The officers' group stumbled across small tracks and rocks displaced from their paths. But Mira's agility and Kai's careful planning kept them safe. For now. As they paused behind a large boulder, Kai caught his breath. Mira looked up at him, her glowing eyes full of understanding. She mimicked his gestures. Stay low, move slowly, and watch carefully. Kai smiled faintly, amazed at how quickly she had learned. Her intelligence was remarkable, and her instinct for survival even more so. They continued to navigate the rocky terrain, avoiding the main paths. Kai led Mira toward a narrow crevice he had noticed before, a path that could take them higher up the ridge, out of sight of the colony. Mira followed his movements carefully, using the skills he had taught her to move silently. For the first time, Kai realized how much she had changed since he first found her. She was no longer just weak and frightened. She was quick, alert, and learning to survive in a world that feared her. After a tense climb, they reached the top of the ridge. From there, they could see the colony below. The officers were still searching, but their progress was slowed by the rocky terrain. Kai took a deep breath, relief flooding through him. Mira crouched beside him, her glowing eyes flicking to his face. She made a soft, melodic sound, almost like a question. Kai smiled and nodded, reassuring her silently. They were safe for now. Kai knew, however, that they could not remain hidden forever. The colony's fear would only grow, and sooner or later someone would insist on capturing her. He had to find a plan, a way to protect Mira and perhaps even change the colony's mind about her. But for the moment, all he could do was keep her safe and ensure she had food, water, and trust. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Kai set down a small pack of food and water. Mira approached carefully, her movements precise, and began to eat. Kai watched her, feeling a mix of pride and determination. This alien woman, who had been called a monster and left to starve, was now learning to survive because someone had chosen to care. That afternoon, as Kai rested beside Mira, he thought about the challenges ahead. The colony's fear, the officers' determination, and the unknown dangers of the outer settlement were all threats they would have to face. But Kai also realized something important. Mira was not helpless. She was strong, intelligent, and capable of learning. Together, they could face whatever came next. As evening fell, Kai packed up the remaining supplies. Mira followed him for a short distance, her glowing eyes reflecting the colors of the sunset. He reached out, letting her touch his hand gently, a silent promise that he would never abandon her. Mira responded with a small melodic sound, almost like a soft laugh. In that moment, Kai knew that their bond was stronger than any fear, any rumor, or any obstacle the colony could place in their path. That night, as Mira rested in her hidden shelter and Kai returned to his quarters, he felt a deep sense of resolve. The danger was real, but so was the trust between them, and he understood more than ever that protecting her was not just an act of kindness. It was a testament to the best part of humanity, the courage to care for those who are different, even when others cannot. Kai crouched behind a cluster of rocks, watching the colony below. The officers had not given up. Their shouts and the sound of boots striking the hard ground carried through the valley. He glanced at Mira, who crouched beside him, her glowing blue eyes wide with alertness. She had learned quickly over the past weeks, and now her sharp instincts were guiding them both. "We have to move," Kai whispered, pointing toward a narrow crevice in the rocks. It would take them to higher ground, away from the colony's view. Mira nodded slightly, understanding the urgency, and followed him silently. Her long, delicate fingers brushed against the rock walls as she climbed, careful not to make any noise. The climb was difficult. Loose rocks slid underfoot, and the wind threatened to throw them off balance. Kai led the way, carefully testing each step, while Mira mimicked his movements. Her trust in him was clear, and that trust gave him courage. Together, they moved like shadows, blending into the rocky terrain. Halfway through the climb, Kai stopped and pointed down. Below, the officers were moving closer to the base of the ridge. Kai's heart pounded. If they were spotted now, there would be no chance of escape. He held up his hand, signaling Mira to stay low and silent. She flattened against the rock, watching his gestures with perfect attention. Kai had planned for this moment. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small device that emitted a soft, bright light. When he activated it briefly, the light scattered across the rocks, creating illusions of movement in other directions. Mira's eyes widened in understanding. She had learned from him how to use distractions to their advantage. Together, they activated another small reflective device, sending flashes across the valley below. The officers paused, confused by the sudden bursts of light. Shouts echoed as they tried to figure out what had caused the illusions. Kai took a deep breath and led Mira along a narrow ledge, carefully moving past the confusion. Every step was calculated. Mira moved as if her body remembered every gesture Kai had taught her, climbing quietly and following his lead without hesitation. After what felt like hours, they reached a hidden tunnel Kai had discovered earlier while exploring the ridge. It was narrow and dark, but it led to an uncharted forest beyond the colony. Kai gestured for Mira to enter first, and she obeyed, stepping carefully into the shadowy passage. Her glowing eyes lit the way faintly, revealing roots and rocks that could trip them if they were not careful. Inside the tunnel, Kai could feel the tension in Mira's body. She had been through so much already: starvation, fear, and the constant threat of capture, but she did not hesitate now. She trusted him completely. That trust was stronger than fear, stronger than the officers chasing them, and stronger than the prejudice of the colony. Hours passed as they navigated the twisting tunnel. The air grew cooler, the scent of damp earth filling their senses. Kai occasionally paused to give Mira water and small bites of food, making sure she stayed strong. Her movements became more fluid with each step, showing that she was gaining confidence in this new environment. Finally, they emerged from the tunnel into the open forest. Towering trees stretched above them, their leaves filtering the sunlight into soft patterns on the ground. Strange, colorful plants surrounded them, and tiny creatures scurried between roots. Mira paused, looking around in wonder. Her glowing eyes reflected the colors, and she let out a soft, melodic sound, one of joy and relief. Kai smiled. They were safe, at least for now. The colony was far behind them, and the forest offered both protection and new possibilities. Mira turned to him and touched his hand lightly, a silent expression of gratitude. For the first time, Kai felt that their bond was not just about survival, it was about friendship, trust, and the promise of a shared future. As they moved deeper into the forest, Kai realized that this was only the beginning. The colony might still fear Mira, and the world outside the forest was unknown, but together they were strong. Human ingenuity and alien intelligence had combined to overcome fear, prejudice, and danger, and Kai knew that as long as they stayed together, there was hope for both of them, and perhaps for the people of the colony to learn something important about compassion and understanding. That night, beneath the shelter of large trees, Kai and Mira rested. Mira curled up beside him, and her glowing eyes flickered softly in the moonlight. Kai gazed at the stars above, thinking about the journey ahead. They had escaped, but the adventure was far from over, and in that moment he felt a quiet, unshakable certainty. Whatever challenges came next, they would face them together. The forest was unlike anything Kai had ever seen. Towering trees stretched high into the sky, their leaves forming a dense green canopy that filtered the sunlight into patterns on the forest floor. Strange plants with glowing tips and small, curious creatures moved among the roots, creating a symphony of color and life. Kai walked carefully, leading Mira through a narrow path, making sure they avoided anything that could be dangerous. Mira moved beside him with quiet confidence. She had grown stronger and more alert since the escape from the colony. Her glowing blue eyes scanned the surroundings, noticing every detail: the movement of the leaves, the tiny insects crawling across the ground, and the distant sounds of unknown animals. She paused at times, tilting her head and making soft, melodic sounds. Kai realized these were her ways of observing and understanding the world. Kai had brought a small pack of food and water, and they stopped near a stream to rest. Mira knelt beside the clear water, touching it lightly with her long fingers. She made a soft, surprised sound and then mimicked Kai's actions, drinking carefully. Kai smiled. She was learning quickly, not just human gestures, but also the ways to survive and adapt in a new environment. After their short rest, Kai explored a nearby clearing with Mira. He showed her how to identify edible plants and safe paths, pointing and naming each thing slowly so she could understand. Mira watched intently, repeating his gestures and trying to copy his movements. She seemed fascinated by the forest, and Kai could see the joy in her eyes. This was freedom, away from the fear and cruelty of the colony, and for the first time, Mira could fully experience it. As they moved deeper into the forest, Mira began to display abilities that Kai had not noticed before. She could make small changes in light around her, creating faint illusions that hid them from view. At first, Kai was surprised. "You can do that?" he whispered. Mira looked at him, her glowing eyes steady, and made a soft melodic sound. Then, she waved her hand slowly and the light shifted around them, making their shapes harder to see. Kai realized that her alien abilities were subtle but powerful, and she had learned to control them carefully. Kai watched with awe as Mira experimented gently with the light. She created small illusions of movement, making it appear as if they were walking in one place while hiding in another. It reminded him of the tricks they had used to escape the colony, but now Mira was doing it herself, showing initiative and intelligence. Kai felt a surge of pride. She was not only surviving but thriving. The two of them stopped near a large ancient tree. Its roots spread wide, creating natural seating, and the canopy above filtered the sunlight into a soft glow. Kai set down the remaining food and water, sharing it with Mira. She ate carefully, then turned to him and touched his hand gently. Her gesture was more than gratitude, it was trust, friendship, and a growing connection that neither human nor alien words could fully capture. Kai spent the afternoon showing Mira how to use the natural environment for safety. He demonstrated how to hide behind trees, watch for movement, and listen for subtle changes in the air. Mira followed carefully, her glowing eyes alert and her long fingers moving with precision. She even began mimicking his ways of observing and learning, showing that she could adapt quickly to new challenges. As the sun began to set, Kai and Mira sat together beneath the canopy. The forest was calm, filled with the soft sounds of life. Mira leaned slightly toward him, resting her hand near his. Kai looked at her, understanding the depth of their bond. She had been called a monster by the colony, left hungry and afraid, yet here she was, strong, intelligent, and trusting a human completely. Kai felt a quiet determination. He would continue to teach her, protect her, and explore the wonders of this world together. Mira had shown him the power of trust, curiosity, and courage, and in return he had given her food, safety, and understanding. Their partnership was growing into something deeper than either of them could have imagined. That night, as stars began to peek through the gaps in the canopy, Mira curled close to Kai, her glowing eyes soft and calm. Kai looked up at the sky, thinking about the journey ahead. There would be challenges, dangers, and unknown adventures, but together, they were ready. Mira was no longer a frightened alien. She was a friend, a companion, and a remarkable being who had taught him as much about humanity as he had taught her about survival. Kai and Mira had spent several days exploring the forest beyond the colony. Each day brought new discoveries: strange plants with shimmering leaves, small creatures that moved silently among the roots, and hidden streams of fresh water. Mira had grown more confident with each step, her glowing blue eyes bright with curiosity and understanding. She had learned quickly, adapting to the forest, and her subtle abilities with light had become more controlled, almost graceful. One morning, as the sun filtered through the canopy in golden streams, Kai decided it was time to show Mira the wider world. "Today we'll see the valley beyond the forest," he said softly, pointing ahead. Mira tilted her head, glowing eyes following his gesture. She made a small melodic sound and Kai smiled. Together they moved carefully through the undergrowth, stepping over roots and avoiding thorny plants. As they reached the edge of the forest, Kai paused. From here they could see the colony in the distance. It looked small and harsh from this vantage point, dust rising from the main paths and the buildings gleaming under the sun. Mira stayed close to him, watching quietly. Her hand brushed his arm, a subtle gesture of trust and comfort. Kai felt a deep warmth inside. Despite all the fear and cruelty she had faced, she had survived, grown stronger, and learned to trust. Kai realized that the colony might never fully understand Mira, but perhaps some humans could learn from what they saw. She was not a monster. She was intelligent, kind, and capable of learning and helping. Kai wished he could show everyone her true nature, but he knew that change often began with small acts of courage and care. As they walked through the open valley, Mira began to experiment with her abilities. She created faint illusions of movement, hiding them from view when a small drone passed overhead. Kai watched with pride. Mira's intelligence, her adaptability, and her understanding of the world around her had grown far beyond what he could have imagined. She was learning not just from him, but from her environment, and she was thriving. They stopped near a small pond, its surface reflecting the sky and the surrounding trees. Kai knelt and offered Mira a small piece of food, which she took gently. Then, she dipped her hand into the water, creating soft ripples that shimmered in the sunlight. She looked at Kai and made a soft melodic sound, almost like a laugh. Kai smiled. This was freedom, a life where she could be herself without fear or cruelty. Kai spent the afternoon teaching Mira small things about the world. He pointed out safe plants, explained the behavior of small animals, and showed her how to move quietly through the grass. Mira watched and copied him, her glowing eyes alert and her movements careful but confident. She was learning, exploring, and beginning to understand not only the forest but also the value of trust and friendship. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple, Kai and Mira sat together beneath a large tree. Mira's glowing eyes reflected the colors of the sunset, and she touched his hand gently. It was a simple gesture, but it carried everything: gratitude, trust, and the bond that had grown between them. Kai realized that kindness and understanding could overcome fear, prejudice, and cruelty. Mira's survival and growth were living proof of that. Kai knew their journey was far from over. The forest held unknown dangers, and the colony still feared her. But together they had faced every challenge so far, and together they would continue. Mira had shown him the power of trust, courage, and adaptability. In return, he had given her care, protection, and friendship. Their partnership was a testament to what humans could achieve when they chose empathy over fear. That night, beneath the soft glow of the stars, Mira rested beside Kai. Her hand brushed his lightly, a silent thank you that spoke louder than any words. Kai looked at the sky, thinking about the future. He knew there would be challenges, but he also knew that kindness, understanding, and courage could change the world, even if only a little at a time. Kai whispered softly, "We'll face it together, Mira." She responded with a gentle melodic sound, leaning slightly closer. In that moment, Kai felt hope. Hope for Mira, hope for himself, and hope for a future where humans and other beings could understand, trust, and care for one another. The forest was quiet around them, filled with the soft sounds of life, and as Kai and Mira rested together, a new chapter of their lives began. One full of learning, adventure, and the promise that empathy and courage could truly make a difference in the universe.